Sometimes inspiration strikes on a project and you just fly through it from beginning to end. Design, building, putting it all together, everything just comes in line and it's a breeze. But sometimes you have those ideas where you have the start of an idea, you start on it, and then it sits on your shelf for a month or two or more. Well, this is one of those projects where it's been sitting on my shelf for some time, but with the help of my wife and daughter, I now have this finished piece. It's a backlit photo lamp. And we're going to go over all the steps and how you can make yours and customize it yourself. But before we get into that, remember to hit that subscribe and bell button to keep up with all the latest DE Hammer videos. Remember, you can also follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So let's jump into this project. I used a nominal 24 by 30 piece of birch plywood. I used a nominal 12 by 24 white acrylic. You can also use some clear acrylic for the front. Again, I started this project before I really knew what I was doing, so I didn't have enough room in the channel for the clear front, but you could change that up and put a clear piece in front for yours. You're also going to need some clamps. It doesn't matter. I did use the 90-degree and the quick grips on this. For the lighting, I used this setup, and I'll have links down below to everything I used so you can check out what they are. We're also going to be using this pipe bracketing to connect the wall mount to the light housing. Also, I cut everything out on my LongMill. The other tools I used miter saw, Dremel, sander, and a drill. Also, some soldering equipment. I'm going to highly recommend you get some liquid flux for when you're soldering. Just makes everything easier. If you're not comfortable with soldering, you can always use some electrical tape. And speaking of tape, also need some painter's tape. You'll need some primer and you'll need some paint. I'm going to say this right now, I will never use that glitter blast again. That was a pain in the butt, but we'll talk about that a little later. All right, so let's look at all the different pieces that make up this lamp. Right here, this is the bottom piece of the light base, and these are the sides. These rectangles right here are the channels that slide in the acrylic in photos. You will notice they are a little oversized to the actual piece itself. And that is because if this was flush up here and we were pocketing this out, it would come up, and as this would be an inside corner, it would leave a rounded edge in there. But this way, it's all clear and you can slide stuff into the channels. We got our cleats right here. This is the back part of the base, and this is the front part of the base. And this right here is our lid. And let's look at the two different types of cuts used. All that was used on this was pocket and contour. And you can see that group 1, this is all my pocket cuts. And group 2, this is all my contour cuts. So for the channels on the light housing, that's going to be these. Just cut, pocketed in down 6 millimeters, so about half the thickness of the board. The cleats were also pocketed, and that is due to this face part of the wall mounting system. You can see here it is pocketed as well, and that's so it sits in here on this part. And so taking a millimeter or two off here will ensure that it's going to be flush, so it's not jutting out the back because this is pushing the cleat back. So this makes it all the same thickness, and we don't have to worry about any issues there. Speaking of the wall mounting part, like we had said, this is all pocketed out. You'll notice that these are showing rounded corners, and when I make a new one, that's what I will do. I did use a lot of straight corners for the inserts and everything, forgetting about the roundedness, like we talked about here. And as you can see here, this was a 90-degree corner. And of course, a circle cannot make a inside 90-degree corner. So I've changed all that to rounded corners so everything fits in. And so there's no need to worry about fitting and then dremeling down and getting things to fit. Okay, also here on the front part of the wall mounting issue, I pocketed that out a little bit because we're going to have the two cleats right here, and they were hidden about right there, and I just wanted to have a little bit extra room to move the cord. That part is not necessary, but it is there. I always like to give myself a little bit of extra play and wiggle room when it comes to cording. Same here, this is for the cord to come down the bottom of the base unit, and again, it's oversized, so it cuts all the way through because we got these 4 inside corners there. And here's the lid, and we just pocketed down about 2 millimeters. Didn't need to go too deep. This is all held in together frictionally. Didn't want to have to get into any hinges or anything like that, and I wanted to be able to take this off, change out the pictures, or put in a new piece of acrylic, or change up the design. So just something real easy to get on and off. And that's really about it. If you're interested, I will put the SVGs up on my Thingiverse account. Link will be down in the description below. And overall, it's really a simple design. I already have all these pieces cut out, did it on my LongMill, so let's put this whole thing together. All right, so once everything's cut, I'm going to go ahead and sand everything down. Start with the hand sander, then go ahead and sand it down by hand as well. Fun part, yay, sanding. So much sanding. Again, I started that piece 2 or 3 months ago, so just giving it another quick sand down before I put a coat of shellac on it. Now getting everything lined up on the base. You can see I got the Dremel there, taking care of those inside corners like we talked about in the other part of this video, getting everything to fit. So just going on those corners, rounding them out so it fits in nice and snug, and then hand sanding it down. And it's just taking your time, making sure you get everything right. It's all snug, it's not going to get any splinters, everything's going to feel nice and smooth to the touch. So much sanding, people. So much fun. I guess that's why I like acrylic a lot less sanding. But gotta admit, it is fun working with wood. All right, then making sure our cleats fit in there, everything's in there, sand those down a little bit. Again, you don't have to have a Dremel, but it is a good tool to have, and I find myself using it a lot, not just on this project, but several projects. So you may want to look at one of those. All right, next going to glue the wall mount together. So just put a bead around the edge, and then just take my finger and smooth it all out, and then we'll clamp it together. You know, I see the jokes, you can never have enough clamps, and it is so true. I went from having 2 clamps, now I have, 6 clamps and 3 different types. And oh, I was just at the store the other day and almost bought some more, but had to get my priorities straight and get the things I really need. But I'm pretty sure I'll be buying some more clamps here pretty soon. Next time on the cleats, I think I would make them a little bit wider. Just give my hands a little bit more room there with the miter saw. But remember, we do need to pocket those down so they are flush against the wall, so we can't fully cut them out on the miter saw. All right, now we're going to glue the cleat in and then clamp it down. Well, to say, I really do like those quick clamps. Just right there, you can see I was just making sure my other cleat fits in there. Everything's lined up, and I got it square. All right, so I've given the light boxing house a quick shellac, and now I'm just sanding it down, light sanding. I believe I'm using a piece of 320. Just again, not a heavy sand, just getting everything nice and smooth. I found that giving everything a shellac before putting on your primer coat just gives you a nice overall finish when you get that primer on. And just put it on primer. I like to use white matte, whether it's white or black. I am just a matte kind of guy. You can use whatever you want. All right, now that the wall mount is done, gonna give it a quick sand, just getting the glue first by hand, then I use the hand sander, and then another quick sand by hand, and then it's on to getting a coat of shellacker and then a primer coat. First, before we put on the final coat of the piece, I'm gonna make the drill holes for the piping fixture to go on. And I'm using that wood board just to help prevent with any tear out. Also, once I get that one done, I can just put it on the top piece and use that as a guide. You'll see later on, I paint the metal piping white, but that's just so it matches all my daughter's furniture for her room. Can't really see it here, I apologize, but just getting everything lined up. And again, we're doing this, we're getting it all lined up so everything's straight and even when we put this together, because it is screwing. You don't want it, on and at an odd angle. You want it to screw in into a nice fixed position. But before we put the final coat on, we're going to tape up those channels. Like I said, I had this, I had thought about this, and I was going to be using clear acrylic in there, and it was much thinner than the white acrylic I got. So I don't want to get any of this paint in. I know it's going to be thicker. So just taping that up so I don't lose any of my width when painting for putting in the acrylic and the pictures. I will never be using the Krylon Glitter Blast again. It was a pain in the butt. I mean, it would just shoot out. It would not stop spraying. At times it would drip. 3 cans and I barely covered everything, all the pieces. And there's still parts where you can see it's lighter than others. If ever, I've used the Krylon, I believe it's the Morph series. I'll throw a picture up of what I'm talking about. That stuff is awesome. Use that over this Glitter Blast. The Glitter Blast, I should have paid more attention to the reviews. It is not fun. All right, like I said, gonna paint the metal up, match my daughter's furniture. It's all white, so just taping up all the threaded parts so we don't get those all gunked up. And we'll just use the same matte white that we use as our primer coat on the wood. And then we'll get those painted up and then let them dry. Now I also did do a clear coat of everything, just didn't get that in the time lapse. All right, now we're gonna get all the wiring put together. Right here you can see I start getting the nipple for the lighting fixture in. I start by hand, and then when I can't do it by hand anymore, just use the pliers real quick, give myself a turn until it does get past to where I can start doing it by hand. Once I get there, screw on the light fixtures, make sure our wires are through, not tangled up. And then we're going to put together our piping bracket there. And then we'll run our power cord in through the bottom and up through the piping fixture. And then just keep double checking that you have things lined up and that they work. One of the things here is before you go soldering or taping anything up, test and make sure it works. So we're going to put the light bulb in. I'm going to make sure, hey, yeah, everything works. We're all good before you solder or tape anything up. All right, then I get my wires ready, and then I put on my shrink wrap for both the positive and negative, and then I have one that goes over that. And again, test it. Make sure everything's unplugged. And then really just make sure they're twisted well together before we get to soldering. Using my wire cutters there just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. Put in flux. I highly recommend, if you're going to solder, get flux. I've tried soldering without flux. Man, flux just changed the world. Some helping hands like that, what you see there, those are always nice to have. And again, I cannot recommend it enough. Get some flux, use it. It just helps your soldering, makes it so much cleaner. And we get the negative and positive soldered together. Then now we're going to test it before we get the heat gun out. Just use my heat gun to activate the shrink wrap. Don't have to use a heat gun. You can also use a lighter. And again, if you don't feel like soldering, hey, get some electrical tape. Just remember, don't cross the negative and positive. Wrap them separately, and then you can wrap them together. But I'm sure you guys all know that. All right, so here again, lining everything up, making sure everything's where I want it before I start screwing in. I'm looking at the wording on that piping so I know where it needs to be. And then I can start screwing them in. I already have my holes, so this is just a matter of double, triple checking before screwing in and get them in. Had to disconnect the connection parts just so I could get in there and not scrape off the white paint, and then just turn the bases. Same here, gotta undo the base, get it lined up, double, triple check where everything needs to be. It's the last thing you want is it being upside down or wonky before you get it in. So now this set does come with all the screws and anchor, but I would suggest getting a better set of anchor points. They were not the best. All right, next the cleat. I'm just going to come in here, measure it out, get where I'm going to put the screws in to mount it to the wall. Make sure those are evenly apart. Again, double, triple check your math. What is it? Measure 3 times, cut once. My case, sometimes it's measure 4, 5, 6. It's like, wait, did I do that? And then here, again, since it's all friction, I taped off the lid so it would fit into the light holder. All right, we got it all put together, but let's take a quick look inside here. You can see our acrylic here in its channel. Now, for the photos, I just took regular print paper, printed out the pictures, and made it the same size as my acrylic. I might be able to fit a piece of small acrylic in there in the future, or thin. We'll have to wait and see. But basically, it just slides in. And even let's say if you didn't want to do the picture. That's the other cool thing about these lights. It has nice remote control. It has a good diffused look with the acrylic here. So you could really use this or put, you got a lot of options here. You could take color acrylics, make a design, and put that on there. Really, you're only limited by your imagination. I do think this was a good idea, though, for photos and like during the holiday seasons, you can change it out. So if it's Halloween, you could put a Halloween picture, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. It's hard to hold and put that in. So here, we'll turn that off, put it down real quick. We'll just take the acrylic out. Get it lined up there. Now, you might be able to use photo paper. I haven't tried, don't have any. But it's simple to get the acrylic in and out. And then for the lid, it just snaps in there like that. And we have our light. Let's take a quick look at the back real quick while we have it here. And see right there, if that, sometimes on some of the other projects I've had where I'm running wire and we had a backing like that, if you didn't have a channel, you wouldn't have enough room. Luckily, we have plenty. And we have our channel here to run our wire down. So, and our cleat right here. So let's go put it up on the wall and see how it looks. So there it is, all nice and lit up. We can change colors, we can change how bright or dark it is. The switch on the wall is great to have in case somebody loses a remote. That will never happen, I'm assured. But I'm also going to get a cable management option going for her, so there's kind of blends in with the rest of the furniture, just like the metal arm piping there. And really, you got a lot of options here. You have a lot of things you can do and really make these your own and put your own personality into them. I think this was a really awesome idea. My wife really nailed it when she was like, well, why don't you put photos in it? I was like, yeah, and they can be changed out. So thank you all again for watching, and until next time, keep making stuff.